All right, so as was mentioned before, in Revit you build out, okay? So we have to then now add countertops to this. For this one, we're going with the standard, I think it's a laminate countertop. We're just going to use that. So we'll save this. Well, you need to save this, by the way, periodically. If you haven't saved in a while, go ahead and click save. Okay. Now we're going to add more components. We need to go back in and load family. By the way, countertops are kept in the casework, okay? So we need one with a sinkhole, countertop with sinkhole. And let's go ahead and get that placed. I'm going to place that right here, even though the sink isn't matching up. We'll edit that now. Let's edit countertop material. Okay. And let's look and see what we find. We can go with a laminate, but that's kind of ugly, so it's time to do some loading, okay? So let's look under stone and see what we find. We want granite cut polished. Okay. That didn't give us what we needed, did it? Okay. And what you need to do is click this little button here, add material to document. Okay, apply, and okay. Now we've got a granite countertop. Okay, now you notice that where I put that, okay, the wall is up against the wall. That's great. The sink is not over the sink, so we need to move that. So we're going to move this to where it's centered here. All right, and that gives us the sink location. Now what I'm going to do is pull this out to where this comes all the way over here. Okay. All right. And you can actually bring this in potentially here and here. It doesn't really matter where you end this. I'm gonna, let's end this in the middle kind of thing, or over the edge of the dishwasher. We have to add 2 L-shaped countertops as well. So there's going to be a small seam. We have to go back into load family, casework, and this is what I was saying about going ahead and adding all the things that you think you might need. Now let's do L-shaped. No, we don't want that L shape. We want L shape too, because you see it has this type of L. All right, so we're going to click open, edit type, change the material to match the other, which is the granite, apply and okay. All right, and we're going to put the corner where it comes right here. Okay, now as you will notice here, this is actually covering the sink, so we need to move this back. We're just going to pull this to where it lines up with this. When the line gets fat, they're lined up. You got to zoom in though, because sometimes you have to pull it more. Usually when the line gets really fat, it's nice and lined up. Now here's the funny thing about this L shape. The arrows are down here, so we're going to have to pull it to where it's right here. All right, it may be easier to pull this one to match it because the arrows are right on it. So we can zoom way in and get it connected like so. All right. Now we have that countertop, and obviously we don't want this countertop running in the middle of our refrigerator, so we need to pull this back to where it comes out just a little over the edge, but not all the way to the refrigerator. Okay, we're going to be doing the same thing over here. We need to mirror it, so we discussed our ways to mirror, so we can mirror in the middle of the window again. Pops it into place. Let's move this to where it lines up with it here, okay? This prevents a seam from showing, okay? Now we need to move this one to where it overhangs a bit, but not all the way. All right, and then we need to add one more countertop to cover this little guy. A whole countertop just for that little thing. But yes, we need to load another family for that because it is a single countertop, just a countertop this time. All right, so now this time we still need to edit type because we haven't used this one yet. Now I'm going to rotate it around, pop it into place here, okay? Let's get this one over first, the long one. And then let's pull this side out just a hair. Okay, so we have a nice little kitchen for a small space, but it's a decent sized kitchen. We still have enough room for a really small table here, and although this is going to be an odd shaped space, we've got a bit of a living room area here, not much. This is a very, very tiny house. We're not going to be putting a lot of furniture in, obviously, because we don't really have room. As it turns out, we may want to move some things down to make it a bigger space, because let's say we're designing a small space, but realize this isn't just going to be big enough to live in, so we may want to change that as we go, and I'll show you how easy that can be to do in Revit, okay? As we progress through this. So the lectures for this course are designed to really show you how you might design on the fly, trying to get a space the way you want it to become. All right, so we have countertops, we have base cabinets, and we have appliances in the kitchen. We're doing pretty good. What else do we need to add? We need a sink. So we need to go back to our components, load family, okay? And this time we're going to plumbing, architectural plumbing, fixtures, sinks. We need a double sink, but we want to make sure, now I want you to notice where it says 2D, you don't want to use these, okay? So we want sink double, sink single. We don't have room for a triple. Let's try the double and get the smallest one that we can use of those double sinks. I don't think it's giving us a small option, so let's go back to the single sink. We can actually adjust that. So here's something we can do first before we do that. We've loaded it. Now what we can do is we can open our opening up a bit. All right. And see how flexible this can be, okay? So our opening now is a bit bigger. Let's measure it and see how big we got it. It's 2'9", which is 33 inches. We need to bring it in just a little bit, I think. And then maybe move the center over just a little bit to where it lines up with that center, okay? All right, so that's a little bit better, and we haven't, hopefully not moved our counters. We may have, so we may need to adjust that a little bit. Okay, we're good to go there. There we go. Okay. And looks like we need to move this too. So you got to be careful when moving the sink, because sometimes when we move that, it doesn't move just the sink hole, it moves the whole countertop. So we want to adjust that accordingly. Okay. You can lock it, of course, as I showed you with the cabinetry. We can lock these pieces. It's not a big deal. So you cannot get rid of the seam in plan view, though. It can't be done. Okay. That being said, if you look at this from a course standpoint, no, that really doesn't adjust that. Let's look at it fine. Interestingly, fine brings up our labels, so we'll go back to medium and see what medium looks like. Medium has labels. Okay. We'll go with coarse, which does not have labels. Okay. Now we need that sink, so let's go find our sink. Let's edit type, duplicate, call it 33 inches by 21, okay, and change the width of the sink from 3'6" to 2'9", okay. And now we should be able to pop it into place over the opening here. Boom. And there you have your sink, okay? All right, so we're finished with the bottom half of the kitchen. Now, how do you place your upper stuff? Pretty much the same way. Now, this is a window with trim, so we need our cabinets not to start right next to it, about 6 inches or so away from it. So we can build out from the wall out, or we can build from the corner out, or we can build differently. So it's completely up to you how you want to do it. I typically start near the window, get the first one in place, and then build around. So we're going to load family, casework, wall cabinets, okay? Just going to go ahead and load them all in, and we'll pick them as we go. So again, this is going to take a couple of minutes to load all these into the model. There we go. It is loading. You may wonder how to get rid of what you haven't used, because each item that you add makes your model very, very large. Well, there is a quick, easy way to do that, and I'm going to show you after we get these wall cabinets in, okay? Okay, they are now in. Okay. Wall cabinets have to be attached to a wall when you place them in, or you're going to get an error message that says it can't be placed outside of its host. Its host is the wall, okay? So let's look at corner unit, tall, one. We're not going to go with that. We're going to go with, I don't really like glass cabinets in a small space like this where everything's open, but let's start with single door on each side of the sink. And we'll go with maybe 18 inches on each side. Okay, so we need to edit the type to make the wood. Find our cherry. Okay. Now, these are standard height. If you look at the depth, it's 1 foot. These are just standard, okay? So the top of the cabinet is going to be at 7 feet. The height of the cabinet itself is 2'6". So you can change this to 3'6" if you want to have taller cabinets. And since it is a small kitchen, that might be a good idea because it does give you that extra space. Apply and okay. All right, and remember it faces downwards, so we need to have approximately 6 inches or so from the edge of the window to allow for the trim and to make that look pretty good, okay? So we're going to measure it now. Okay, so it's from the center of the cabinet itself to the center of the window is 2'7". Our window is a 3-foot wide window, so that's 18 inches. And this is 18 inches, so that's 9 inches, 18 and 9, which is 27 inches. Okay, the two of these, half of this and half of this, takes up 27 inches. So the space between them then, if it's 2'7", is 4 inches, and that's actually pretty good. Okay, so we could give it 1 more inch. We'll move, select enter, pull over, 0 space 1, enter. Okay, and there we go. We should have now 2'8" between the two of them, which works out nicely. Now let's use our mirror and mirror on the window itself and add our wall cabinet on the other side. Okay, so now we have wall cabinet, and we can then measure to see how much space we have left. $3'10". Okay, that's we're gonna need to use a filler, which is really great. So wanted to go ahead back into edit type. The top of the cabinet should be at 8 feet, which is one thing we did not change before. So let's go ahead and change that. Change the top of that cabinet to 8 feet. Let's change this as well. It did change. Okay, all right, so all right, so let's go ahead and introduce some views. Let's go to View, Elevation, Interior Elevation. We're going to select the type of elevation as Interior Elevation and point that right here, and let's take a look at that. Okay. These don't necessarily go to the ceiling. We have a level of 10 feet. We haven't really added our ceiling in place though. So this is looking pretty good, but I don't really like the way that door faces. So one way we could change this is to bring this over here and bring this over here. We want that to be 2'8" in between. There we go. Okay. And we could actually make this a higher window if we wanted to. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm not liking the way that looks, so let's go with, if we go with that window, we changed our sill height already, so we have a taller window, but I don't want that one either. I want this to be 36 by 36. So as we're looking at this, we can change some of the design features. So let's go ahead and do that. Edit type. Let's go, 36 by 36. Okay. Change the height of the window. Go. All right. And if you don't like the way that looks, you can actually change that again. Now we can mirror this here. And the openings are in front of the sink, are easier to access from the sink. You see where the handles are located. So you can actually change things in the elevation view and decide how they look there. We don't have a ceiling, so keep in mind you will, but this is actually looking to be a pretty good kitchen. So let's go ahead and close that. I'm going to remove this, and it deletes that view, so we don't have to keep looking at that. Or we can leave it there, okay, to come back to it. We're going to be changing the elevation marker and things like that in our drawing, so this is temporary, all right? And now, we did measure this once before, but I'm having a hard time remembering. I think we have 3 foot 10 inches right here, but that's, yeah, 3 foot 10. Okay, so we need a filler of 1 inch. Let's start with our corner cabinet and work out. So I'm going to just do this side and then do this side and come around and then have that kind of mirror over here. And you can continue to play if you're working on a practice drawing as well, okay? So architecture, component, we've loaded all of them, so let's find the one we want. Let's go with corner unit tall. We're going to make that 3 foot 6 like the rest of them, and we're going to make that 8 feet high. Apply. And okay, we need to flip it. There we go, and boom. All right, so now how are we going to look at this again? We want to make a new elevation view, and that's why you can see how this kind of can be a little bit of a hassle at this point in time. We're going to move this down, the marker itself, okay? So we can see this. You can actually change the label here to whatever you want it to say. But that being said, what we're going to do is look at this from our elevation views and see how that looks. Okay, that's sitting on the counter. We don't want that sitting on the counter. So we need to, elevation needs to be 4 foot 6. I believe that's what we have for the rest. Is that okay? And this one is not at 4 foot 6, so we need to change that. All right. Now, this has sort of a little appliance thing. A microwave can go in there quite nicely, and then so now we've made those adjustments there. If you're moving things around in elevation, you do need to check the actual elevation of the piece to make sure that it's at the right location, okay? All right, so we're going to close this view. That's all done. That's all done. We wanted that up. A tall corner cabinet often sits on the counter, but that takes up a lot of countertop space that we don't want it to do. So we're going to put that where it's sort of like a microwave inside of there in this case, okay? But it's raised, and that's perfectly fine. Now we've got, let's check our measurements. Measure between two references. 1 foot 10, we can only use 1 foot 9 of that space. I think we'll just use one cabinet there. We're going to start though with a filler right over here. So let's start with that filler. Well, actually, let's do the cabinet against here, and then we'll do the filler between the two. I'll show you how that works. Component. Let's select here we go. All these changes that you do, only change it in this instance. So all we're doing here is changing 3 foot 6, whoops, the height of the cabinet and the top of the cabinet. Well, that is not quite right. Okay. I think I picked the wrong one. I apologize for that. So here we go again. Measure along two references. Boom, boom. We've got 1 foot 10, not 2 foot 10. Okay, that makes it a little easier. I picked the wrong size. Let's try one more time. Upper cabinet double door. We're not going to be able to use the double door. We have to use single door. So that's down below. Everything goes in alphabetical order when you put it in here. Okay, so single door wall, we have 1 foot 9, which is 21 inches. And of course, we're going to have to edit the type on this one because it's the first time we've used it. And I selected the wrong one last time. So now I'm editing type for something I'm not even using, which is sort of silly, but it happens. Okay. Changing that to 3 foot 6. Changing that to 8 feet, apply, and okay. All right, so there we have that. Now we need the filler, okay, to fill in right here and here. All right, so component, and we're not going to change the filler because we're only using the upper filler one or maybe twice in here. So we don't need to duplicate it, we're just going to change it. So upper cabinet filler. Edit type. All right, now here's the filler. It's wider than the space. We're not going to adjust that depth. We're going to pop it in. And then we're going to use these things to maneuver it. Okay, so we put it in. And then we use these to line it up. Now, if the line looks too thick, it's probably not touching. You want it to touch. You don't want a gap. So the whole point of using a filler is not to have a gap. Okay, and you can zoom in, but the problem with the zoom so you just want to kind of fine-tune this. Until you get it lined up. You can change the width of it if you want to. It's like right here, it's showing. And then you can lock it in place. There you go. Now we can go back to our elevation view and zoom in on that and see that looks pretty good. You can, what I'm going to do here, I don't know if I like the way that opens that way or if I want it to have the door handle here. I think from a view standpoint it would look better the other way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this. So I'm going to go like this, move. Move it over here. And then move again. Endpoint to endpoint. There we go, it's touching. Okay, now I'm going to mirror this. Mirror. There we go. All right, now I'm going to select this piece and the filler using the control key, so I can select them both, mirror them, and there they are. Okay, and I'm looking at it as I'm building it, and I like that. A little space up here isn't bad. It you can make your window taller in a case like this if you wanted to. Again, you've got a lot of adjusting types of things that you can do, okay? But this is sort of a pretty good start to this kitchen, okay? Now, when you get to over here, I'm going to go ahead and build this side out, and I'm going to leave this open. You can, we're just not going to go ahead and do that on this, part right now. I'm going to go ahead and build this side out so you can see what I have to do to get the range hood in place, because you have to have a range hood, obviously, and it has to be 2 feet to 30 inches above your actual range, okay? So we're going to go with the 30 inches. So we've got some space here. Let's go ahead and measure this. And this is almost 6 feet. We can say 6 feet. I think the upper cabinet can extend past the lower cabinet if we need it to. But right here, our immediate issue is that we need to come between here and here. And it's not going to give us an exact measurement because of the way it is angled. So let's try this again. Okay, 2'3" and something. So, which seems very odd to me. If we come here, it's 2'3", so it's 2'4" basically is what we have there. Okay. We're going to need again another filler, which is fine. Right over here is where we're going to place it. So let's start with that, because you can measure the filler again like I showed you. You can give it the exact measurement that you want. So let's give it a width of 1 inch, 0 space 1, and place that right here. We're going to have to move it to where it's touching that corner. So we've taken up that inch. Now let's go ahead and place the rest of this, which should be a 2'3" wide cabinet. So 27 inches is what we're looking for here. Upper cabinet, I believe we're going to need to go with a double door, and we'll go with 27 inches. That's 2'3". Let's edit the type. If you are practicing along, I would like for you to do the other side on your own. You'll learn more when we also do our project, but all right, there it is, popped into place. And it comes to the edge of where the range is. The range itself, remember, is 30 inches. So we need a 30-inch cabinet that we're going to have to modify to go above the range, okay? So we need 18 inches, or I'm sorry, we need 30 inches, a range hood, and then the cabinet to go with it. So first, let's go ahead and figure out what cabinet we're going to do, and then we'll pull in the range hood, and then we'll adjust all of this in the elevation, okay? So back to architecture or home, okay? 30 inches is 2. We could go with this one. Edit type. Duplicate this, because you might use the 30-inch one in another location in this file. Okay, so let's make this range hood cabinet. Okay, All right, the top of the cabinet's going to be 8 feet like everything else. The cabinet itself, I think, is going to be 1'6", but we will maybe need to adjust that height. Okay, let's change the material while we're here. Cherry, okay. Okay. And we're going to line it up to where it's touching where it's directly over the range. There we go. Okay, this is going to need to be moved a little bit. There we go. All right. Now we can go ahead and look at our elevation 1B just to see. Okay, unfortunately we didn't get our, we had our elevation too low. We need to add, okay, the top of that we've got right. So let's see, we need to add 18 inches and whatever that's going to be. But the easiest way to really do this is to pull this up. And go to Modify, Move, Select, Finish Selection, or Enter Space, Endpoint to Endpoint. There we go. Okay, now it's in the right position. Okay, in the correct position, approximately. We may need to adjust the height of it, but we need to add the hood. Okay, and then we need to add another cabinet on the other side. Okay, so go back to the floor plan and pull in the hood. The hood has to be pulled in here. Okay, so Component, Load Family, back to Specialty Equipment, Domestic, and I'm not seeing our hood. So we're probably going to have to do an Autodesk search for that. I believe that's how we find this. So we're going to go to Insert, Range Hood, Autodesk Seek, okay, and we're just going to use this regular range hood. We'll use the most recent file, download selected to local. Save that range hood where you can access it. All right. So let's go back and open this up. It has to upgrade it. It's not a problem. Okay, we're going to load it into the project. Let's, we need range hood 30 inches. Comes in a variety. We just need 30 inches. Okay, we're going to edit the type to match everything else. Metal stainless steel, it actually already is. So I'm going to set it down right about there. Okay. Okay, so we're going to need to go back to our elevation view. Just pop it in somewhere. Now we're going to go find it and look, see, it's kind of at an odd location. So we need to rotate it. It didn't rotate well, so it's not really positioned well. So we need to kind of go back now to our plan, put it in again. Okay, it's facing downward, so we click, click, click. Now we're going to set it down here where it's kind of right there. We're not going to be able to see it, so we got to go back over here. Sorry, not here, but to our elevation view. Okay, and there it is. and we want it right there attached to the base of that cabinet. Now let's do some measuring. How much space do we have here? We have 3 feet. We can actually move this we can move this down 6 inches, so move. Pull down 0 space 6. Okay, and then we can make this taller. Elevation level 6 feet. And come back in here and edit the height to 2 feet. All right, now that's a little complicated, but that's typically how you have to do it. There's a ton of different range hoods that you can find from different sources, so you'll want to play with that a little bit and as you approach this for some of the projects that you're working on, of course, but it's now when you want to kind of be referring back to your elevation views as often as possible, but we are going to delete those, okay, before or change them because we need to change the elevation marker at some point. But this right now is to just help us with planning, okay? All right, so we've got one left. Let's measure between the references here. One foot 1, okay. So we're going to add this. What we'll do is copy this. Copy, select, actually select and copy. Finish selection. We're going to move this down here. And move it over some. There we go. And then we will place one more cabinet, basically the same size as this cabinet at this point, I believe, which is going to be 15 inches. Yeah. Okay, so we need a 15-inch wall cabinet to place there. Okay. And that is going to have to be a single door. Certainly seems a bit bigger than 15 inches, doesn't it? Huh. Let's double check that. I think I may have adjusted something here that I didn't want to do. Oh, we didn't change the size of this one, that's why. Okay, 1'3". Apply and okay. I didn't change the size of that, and that's okay. But now I got to move it. And adjust the countertop a little bit. Hold on, let's move the base cabinet to where it matches up on the wall cabinet. That's really what we want to do. Okay, Now countertop needs to be adjusted, and as you can see, it's pretty easy to make these changes. The one thing we didn't do, or I didn't do when I adjusted the type, the edit type on that, was I did not change the countertop. Needs to come over just a little further here. There we go. Okay. Okay. I see. Okay, base cabinet again needs to be adjusted. Okay. Base cabinet is not adjusted correctly, so there's a lot of little fine tuning here now that I kind of got that all nice and messed up, but Alright, I'm going to pull the base cabinet out in this case. There we go. Now move. Endpoint. To endpoint. That didn't really quite go endpoint to endpoint, did it, though? We want that moved over. There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to need to adjust this countertop again a little bit in this case. So as you can see, things can be added. It is a little easier not to have to change things after the fact. But if you do somehow mess something up a little bit, it's not a big deal. It can be adjusted after the fact. Okay, you do want to make sure that all of your material adjustments are done before you start a rendering. That's the big thing. So let's take a look at this wall. And that doesn't look too bad, all things considered. The only thing I might want to do is flip this door face a little bit. I'm going to move this here. And I'm going to mirror it. Actually, what I'm going to do, okay, I'm going to copy it, finish selection, endpoint to endpoint, okay? I'm going to remove this one. And now since we want it lined up with this, we're going to mirror, select, finish selection, click the midpoint there. Now that wasn't quite what we wanted. No. Okay, so mirror, select, finish selection, click the endpoint here. Boom, there we go, and remove this. And I like that positioning a little bit better. And so you see there are many ways to adjust the way things look here in this space. If you are practicing along, you should try and add cabinets to the other side. You can make a refrigerator cabinet to go above the refrigerator. That one, by the way, is usually about 1'3", give or take. And the height then, of course, would be 8 feet. But to go above the refrigerator, that would be the accurate size for a cabinet that goes above the refrigerator. If you want a cabinet that goes above the refrigerator, the depth on those are going to typically be 2 feet, not 1 foot, simply because you don't want anything, it's impossible to reach if it's only a foot deep. So that is the thing that you need to keep in mind there. So go in and make those add those changes to your kitchen, and if you're practicing along, see what you can come up with and just have a little fun with it, okay?